Rabbit Hole Roundup, episode 93. From knockouts to comebacks, the 5 best fighting movies ever. So guys, in today's edition of the Rabbit Hole Roundup, my whole top 5 list segment is going to be on the 5 best fighting / boxing or MMA movies ever, in my opinion. We as Americans, of course, can't get enough of these movies, myself included.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
Something about like the whole comeback story is just like built into our DNA, I believe. So some of my choices may surprise you because they may not exactly be like the whole media darlings, but I have my reasons, and you guys are going to hear those. Following that, I have a clip coming from backup quarterback Jake Browning that reminds us that like adversity can make you stronger if you know how to use it the right way. And it's okay to be pissed when things don't go your way, but take that as motivation to become better than ever. After that, I have a clip coming from Rich Roll on the Mel Robbins podcast, which happens to be a super powerful reminder that you're not late and you're not falling behind, and why he at 52 realizes that like his life is just beginning, it's not ending. Life doesn't have to decline as you age, as I'm always saying, and you have to focus on your own timeline, not worry about everyone else's. After this, I have a clip coming from my favorite cute little blob on social media, Lennie, where they remind us to be gentle with ourselves and to have grace for ourselves, even when we mess up. Beating yourself up about it isn't going to solve anything.
What can I do anything right?
But remember that like you're trying your best and that's all anyone could ask for. And finally, I have this week's MLB playoffs and NFL Week 7 recap. So we have all that and more today. Anyways, without further ado, let's dive deeper now. Rabbit hole time, let's go.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
What's happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Jared Weiss. If you guys know that, must mean not subscribe to the channel, so you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, be sure to leave a like, drop a comment, let me know your thoughts in the video. Follow me on every platform, and if you guys haven't done so already, make sure to check out my book, Fight Through It by Jared Weiss. All links purchased on my website, which is jaredbryanweiss.com. That's JAREDRYANWEASS.com. Buy the book, support me, and make sure to check out all the awesome shirts in there as well. Every shirt has been designed by me, every shirt is made of 100% organic cotton, so like what could be better than all that? Anyways, as I'm always saying, any support at all is very much appreciated. So anyways, let's dive deeper into this rabbit hole now. So as you guys heard in the intro, for this week's top 5 list, I decided to do the top 5 fighting / boxing or MMA movies. Now this time I'm going to straight up tell you my list, and honorable mentions, and like I'll do the whole explanations after. So we have Creed at number 5, I would say like the first one is definitely the best. Number 4, we have the classic Rocky 1. Yes, the one with Drago is good too, but Rocky 1 is just like the classic underdog fighter story. Number 3, we have Never Back Down. And I know, of course, this movie isn't going to get the same reviews and Rotten Tomatoes love from the critics as some of the others, but as you know by now, I don't go by what they think. This movie has always been a favorite of mine. Number 2, we have Warrior. And number 1, probably because this is like the most relatable story to my own, we have Bleed for This starring Miles Teller. And my 3 honorable mentions are Southpaw, Cinderella Man, and Here Comes the Boom. Also, just to be clear, this is more of a MMA / boxing list, so that's why I didn't include the Karate Kid movies. So now, let's dive deeper into my reasons. Number 5, we have Creed 1, and of course all of them are amazing. Michael B. Jordan does like an awesome job at playing Apollo Creed's son, who initially is a troubled child, he never really met his dad, and even after finding out like who his dad is, he doesn't want to follow in his dad's footsteps, but he ends up doing it anyway, and he ends up going down the road with the help of Rocky Balboa as his trainer.
Were you like a cousin?
He's my father. I want you to train me.
Of course, so many of these sequels don't end up working out because oftentimes the people try too hard, but the whole Creed series honestly fits so seamlessly into the whole Rocky story. The passion and the music in the movie sets the tone really well, and of course, as is the case with all these movies, you get provided with incredible motivation, inspiration, amazing training scenes that are bound to get you fired up. Number 4, we have Rocky, and I'm sure for so many of you out there, this is number 1. And of course, as for many of us, the first one's the best. The whole running up the steps with the whole town behind them is just like an iconic scene. And Sylvester Stallone in these movies, no matter how many times he gets knocked down, he always gets back up and has like some incredible speeches, which is a metaphor for life in so many ways. And that's of course the reason why that movie is always going to hold up no matter how old it gets. And one really crazy thing is that like, even though he loses in that first movie, which is of course the opposite of so many of the other fighting movies, we all remember him going the distance.
So all I want to do is go the distance.
Coming in at number 3, we have Never Back Down, starring Sean Farris, Cam Gigandit, and Amber Heard, before she went crazy, I think. So as I mentioned earlier, this might not exactly be the whole 100% Rotten Tomatoes classic that everyone's going to talk about all the time, but being a lifelong underdog myself, who saw this movie when I was in middle school, this movie always gets me hyped.
Beat yourself if you don't control your breathing.
This bag weighs a friggin' ton.
And of course, Amber Heard was very pretty as the girlfriend, Baha Miller, in the movie. But Jake Tyler, being this hothead, who lost his dad and had trouble controlling his emotions, after changing schools, gets into a fight with Ryan, played by Cam Gigandit, who had to be at 3% body fat in this movie, but Ryan of course being the bully, and Jake's new friend Max, after seeing him get beat up, realizes that he can't take this, and so he tries to help him out. He introduces Jake to his legendary MMA trainer, but what this guy tells Jake is that there's no fighting allowed outside the gym or else he's done. He teaches Jake to take ownership of his actions and to have better control over his emotions. The training scenes in that movie, especially the one with the song Under the Knife, are unreal, and you can totally feel Jake's whole emotional journey, especially during the final fight, which is epic. I love this movie, and I would highly recommend it if you guys haven't seen it. Number 2, we have the movie Warrior, starring Tom Hardy, Joel Edgerton, and Nick Nolte. This movie goes insanely hard as well. You have the whole family element, where Tommy is a former Marine with a tragic past, and his underdog brother Brendan, who's a school teacher and finds out that he's gonna have to take a pay cut, but the two brothers are actually estranged from each other. So Brendan gets back into fighting in order to make some money, and is being trained by Frank Grillo.
You can do this. I can do this.
Well, Tommy decides to get back into fighting too, and he's being trained by his dad, who's played by Nick Nolte, who was also a really bad alcoholic who was never really there for his kids. So their paths cross, and it gets deep. I'm honestly getting fired up just talking about it, and also I can only imagine the type of training that Tom Hardy had to go through to get his traps like that. Sheesh, that was insane. And at number 1, maybe this is surprising for you, but I'm going with Bleed for this, starring Miles Teller. Once again, the reviews might say otherwise, but this movie reminds me of my story in so many ways, as I've been healing from a life-threatening illness, and almost lost my life back in 2014. But this is based on the true story of Vinny Pazienza, who after getting into a serious car accident almost dies. He ends up breaking his neck, and is told by the doctors that he may never walk again, let alone ever be able to fight again. And this of course reminds me of all the doctors told me that I may lose my life, or these are all the issues that I was gonna have to live with for the rest of my life. But Vinny, just like myself, never took no for an answer, and in spite of having all these obstacles, we became stronger than ever.
Come on, you heard what the doctor said. You're risking your life here. You just don't know how to give up.
Trust me, I do. I know exactly how to give up. You know what scares the out of me, Kev? Is that it's easy.
And Vinny returns to fighting a title fight with the help of his trainer Kevin, who reminds him of how they started this in the basement, and he says show him how he fights.
We started this in a basement. Show me how you live. Show me how you fight.
Let me show you how I fight?
Yeah.
And the final quote in that movie about do the thing you think you can't and it's done, and you realize it is that simple, and it always was. I love it.
What was the biggest lie you were told?
It's not that simple. And it's a lie they tell you over and over again. It's how they get you to give up.
And a brief talk on my honorable mentions. It pains me to not have Southpaw on that list, but of course this list was so hard to make. That movie that was insanely good, insanely motivating. Jake Gyllenhaal, whose life fell apart, gets back in the ring, gets his daughter back. You have Eminem on the soundtrack. It gets me hyped every time. Cinderella Man. I'll be honest with you guys, I've only seen that movie once, I think. I do remember it being really good, and also Connor Price. Fun fact, my current favorite rapper is actually a child actor in that movie, but I haven't watched enough to give a full-on review of it. I haven't seen it in a while. And then Here Comes the Boom is a great movie. With Kevin James, you have Salma Hayek, you have Joe Rogan in that movie, and other MMA trainers. And Kevin James is great as a teacher who turns into an MMA fighter in order to save his school's music program, which happens to be run by Henry Winkler. Anyways, let me know your thoughts on my list in the comments below. Next, I have a Jake Browning clip, current backup quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I did see him getting some flack for not taking full-on accountability and for not taking all the blame after getting benched, but honestly I actually liked his response a lot here. And just to be clear, as I've said a bunch of times in my sports segments, I am in fact a big Joe Flacco fan, so I was happy to see him become the starter in Cincy. I love it how he's still going out there and slinging it at age 40, and I love his belief in himself and his personality. But anyways, let's hear from Jake Browning now.
The general theme for myself is, anybody that is going through some adversity, whether it's football or personal stuff, if you go through it and deal with it the right way, there's no way you don't come out the other end, a better version of who you were. And so, for me, it's trying to respond the right way. Obviously, I'm pissed. And if I wasn't pissed, then I shouldn't be in this locker room. And it's important to me. And, I'm aware of the role I played in the offensive struggles over the last few weeks. And, but I'm also not shouldering the entire situation. And, I went through yesterday, watched my throws, tried to come up with some stuff that I want to work on, and just doing that.
So me personally, I appreciate and like his honesty in this response. I like how he says he's pissed, and if he weren't, he probably shouldn't be here. He doesn't put anyone else down, but he says if you go through adversity the right way, there's no way that you can't come out stronger on the other side. So to provide some context, he took over for the injured Joe Burrow, but he played poorly, had a lot of turnovers, and got benched. After the team traded for Joe Flacco, who once again, I was happy to see that because I'm happy for Joe Flacco. But if you put yourself in Browning's shoes, so here you are getting booed, social media is berating you too, and then you get benched. This is a super tough situation to be in. We forget so often that athletes are people too, and that everyone goes through emotions. And after all, Flacco was having the same issues in Cleveland, but now he comes to Cincy and it's a whole different story, and now he's giving hope to the team, and hopefully he had a good game this week, as I'm sure to be covering in this week's recap. But adversity can either shape you or break you.
Don't cry to give up, cry to keep going.
And you should see this as a reason to become better. And sometimes, yes, it does take a change of environment, new teammates, new training. But overall, failure is only final if you roll over and quit. If you keep training, giving it your all, and fight back every time you get knocked down, it can be an ultimate bridge to success. And I'm sure that so many of us out there have experienced a similar situation, whether in our personal lives or in our athletic careers. It's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes you don't perform the way that you had hoped. But what are you going to do next? How will you respond after getting benched, after making an error, or fumbling away this massive opportunity? You can't change the past, but the next move is yours. Next, I want to share a really powerful clip coming from Rich Roll on the Mel Robbins podcast, talking about reaching his peak later in life, and why you're not behind in spite of what you may think.
I didn't reach my athletic peak until I was 43. I didn't write my first book until I was 44. I didn't start my podcast until I was 45. At 30, I thought my life was over. At 52, I know it's just beginning. Keep running, never give up, and watch your kite soar.
What does that mean to you?
To me, it means that change is always possible. I think that we put all of this pressure on ourselves. We are in a hurry all the time to get to some place, and we're indoctrinated into that at a very young age. From the beginnings of school, where we're chasing grades and trying to get to the next level, there's always some sort of goal that we're chasing or some gold star that we're grabbing for, and we're measuring our self-worth against the extent to which we're keeping up with our peers. And so this race begins before our brains are, even close to being formed, and we carry it through our entire life, putting pressure on ourselves, always believing that we're behind and we have to catch up, or we're just never going to get quote unquote there. And I think that's a real violence that we do, this socially imposed violence. And in my experience, yes, life is short. We have one precious life. We should all, devote ourselves to making the most of it. But life is also long, and we're not in a race. So stop measuring yourself against all these other people and figure out who you want to be, what it is that you want to do, and start taking those little baby steps towards it, and it will lead you in a direction that might take longer than other people. But in my experience, that's okay. And this is a tweet that I sent out now 6 years ago. And I don't know if I would say I'm still at the beginning, but I'm not nearly at the end right now, and I'm still.
But you're at the beginning of something.
Yeah, well, we're always at the beginning of something.
Yes.
Growth, change, evolution, transformation. This is a lifelong path that we're on. So there's always something to learn. There's always a way to grow.
Now, as I'm often talking about and also reminding myself of, We're all on our own path and our own timeline, and we need to honor this. And just because this person over here is doing this right now, doesn't mean that like you can't ever do that, whether you won't be doing that 5 years from now.
Even if it takes forever!
So there's no need to rush. Sometimes you just have to trust your process and honor your own path. And I love hearing how like he sees life getting better with time and with age. And it's like in this whole current social media age, where all of us see this viral success story, but yet for so many of us, this isn't our reality, and to expect that isn't fair. And what he's saying is proof once again that another point like I always love to make is that decline isn't inevitable as we age. You don't have to stop living after 30 or after 50 or even after 70. You don't have to place these ridiculous limitations on yourself because honestly, someone older than you is doing exactly what you're saying that like you're too old to do. So is that a legit reason or rather an excuse? And this brings me back to Joe Flacco, who once again I'm hoping that like by the time this video comes out, he played a great game on Thursday, especially because of all these positive shoutouts I'm giving him. But he and even Aaron Rodgers too were both being told to retire and to let the young guys play. But look at how these guys respond. Yes, it might be a young man's game, quote unquote, but does this mean that like these guys have to give up playing the game they love? As Flacco was quoted recently as saying, he's not going to stop when he knows like he still has so much good football left in him. And I love hearing that passion and belief in himself. It never dies. And that's why just 2 years ago, after being told like he was way past his prime, he won Comeback Player of the Year award. As Rich Roll just said, he didn't reach his athletic peak until the age of 43. And he didn't start his podcast until 45. Mel Robbins didn't start her podcast until 54. So, is your life ending, or is it just beginning? Take your time and give yourself some grace, but don't let others' timelines stop you from achieving all the things like you still want to. And finally, before we dive into this week's sports recap, I have a clip coming from Lennie, the inspiring little blob on social media, who reminds us to be gentle with ourselves and to have some grace.
Hi, I have a request. Something daunting. Something crazy. Stop being so hard on yourself. Said something awkward. Oops. Missed that meeting. Whoopsie. Got a bad grade? Oh well. Rewatched the entirety of Normal People in one sitting instead of working on that one thing you were supposed to get done? Shucks. You know what? It happens. The way I see it, you have two options. You can beat yourself up and hate yourself and berate yourself for a thing you cannot change. Or you can take a deep breath, look yourself in your cute little eye, and decide that you are human. And it's okay to make a mistake. And you were not put on this earth to be a perfect little robot creature. You were put here to do your best. And your best is enough. Be gentle with yourself, okay? It's hard out here. I love you so much.
I love that blob. Now, as a perfectionist and as someone who's always been like self-motivator, this can be something like I've struggled with over the years. I can be over-analytical and hypercritical of every step I take and every action I take. And of course, it doesn't have to be a bad thing, it does have its place, but I'm also human just as you are. We can't be a 100% perfect robot, nor were we meant to be. Some days just like won't be our best days, and maybe some days we're not going to be like super productive. Maybe one day we get distracted and like we don't get done with everything that like we wanted to or that we were supposed to. Maybe we fall behind on something else. But as Lennie just said, it happens. So you can harp on that and be like, why did I do this? I'm so stupid. I'm never going to accomplish this. Or you can focus on what to do next, while also, as Lennie just said, acknowledging that like we're all human. And hopefully you're trying your best. And if you are being honest with yourself and like you are actually trying your best, then you can make peace with that. But beating yourself up like about a mistake or a bad day will only compound that and make it worse, while having grace for yourself and remembering that you are human and you can only do so much will allow the next step and the next day to be even better. We could all use some grace and understanding for ourselves, and your best will always be enough, so remember that and keep going. Anyways, now it's time for this week's sports recap. We have MLB playoffs and NFL Week 7. Let's go now. So now, we have a ton of amazing sports to cover, starting with last Thursday, all the way up until last night, which is Monday night. So let's start with Joe Flacco proving me right all along this whole season, and making me look good, because I think it's time for me to take a victory lap on this one. I almost actually made it like its own video, but then I decided to wait till today. So anyways, Thursday night we had the unction, and in fact, it didn't disappoint. Joe Flacco showed why he still has a strong arm, one of the best in the league, and when you give him solid play calls, you give him good receivers who can actually catch the ball, and sometime he can still sling it and look great. I've been saying this for a while now because I've seen him do it like over the past few years. in the right situations, he could still look like a top-level quarterback. And yet, this year when he was on the Browns, you had every sportscaster and Browns fan booing him and calling for him to retire, saying like how washed he is. And now those same people are all up in arms, saying how could we trade away this guy? And I'm just like, well, you guys got what you deserved. You guys got what you wished for. Because you allowed the whole sideshow and clown show of the whole Shedeur Sanders situation to make you think that like the QB was the only problem in Cleveland. And it couldn't be the fact that like the Browns had the most drop passes and that many of those interceptions weren't actually Flacco's fault. You guys just like want to look at the stats. And of course his O-line and play calling for him were absolutely abysmal. This is why you have to look beyond the stats and actually watch the games and see what happens. It's not like baseball where you have earned runs and unearned runs. So if a player drops a pass into a defender's hands, that still counts as an interception for the quarterback. If a receiver runs the wrong route, that also goes against the quarterback. But like meanwhile you have Skip Bayless and the whole arena, and probably everyone at ESPN, all saying that like Flacco shouldn't be starting in the NFL anymore. And yet I still didn't see any apologies. I haven't seen anyone out there claiming like I was right all along, as it should be. But now all these people just like move on, turn the page and celebrate him. Anyways, I've harped on the Browns fans and like the whole organization enough, but like these past 2 games for Flacco showed exactly why Mike Tomlin didn't want to face him. So in this game, Flacco goes 31 of 47 for 342 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he was feeding Jamar Chase all night as Jamar had 16 catches for 161 yards and a touchdown, and he even had like 2 drops, so it could have been even more. T. Higgins had 6 for 96 and a touchdown, and of course the massive catch at the end, which preceded the game-winning field goal. Also, Flacco's best throw of the night was probably when he was getting blitzed, and he found Joseph deep down the middle. On the other side, the other Unk, another one of my favorite players, had a monster game as well. Rodgers has been playing great like all year for the most part, and aside from one bad pick in this game, he was looking unstoppable. He threw for 249 and 4 touchdowns, and he was feeding his tight ends Freiermuth and also like the other monster tight end Darnell Washington. But the Bengals improved to 3-4 and have a rather favorable schedule ahead. So seeing that, and because Flacco's also probably only going to become more comfortable in that offense, it could make things in that division pretty spicy. So that was by far my favorite game in Week 7. And on that same night, you also Max Scherzer pitched a gem for the Blue Jays. So the whole unction delivered and like it was in full effect. Now for the rest of the games at NFL Week 7. So in the international game, we saw Matthew Stafford dominate as they rolled over the Jaguars 35-7. Stafford keeps showing why he's a top 5 quarterback, as he threw for 5 touchdowns and 3 of those were to Devontae Adams. And this was all done without Puka Nacua, and against the Jaguars team who had been surprisingly really good up until this point. The one bright side for the Jags was of course Travis Hunter's first NFL touchdown, and he also had over 100 yards receiving. In the most insane comeback, the Denver Broncos, who were down 19-0 and then 26-8 in the fourth quarter, rattled off 33 points in the fourth quarter, and the Giants collapsed. Now I will say, I'm someone who questions everything, and as you may or may not know by now, I do believe like some conspiracies are true, but in the past year also a ton of them have been muddied, and so a lot of nonsense gets thrown out there as well. And as I've said in the past, I don't believe sports are scripted per se, and the players aren't actors. I think that like the people who do say things like that rarely have any proof, and their reasoning is so often because everything is staged. But they are of course manipulated, and at times rigged, whether by the refs or players who are taking money. That's something that's like known and like we've seen it. But I think it's more of like what Gilbert Arenas once said, how when the league wants a certain result, you essentially have to win by 15 just to win by 1. So I know for sure that like this game is going to get the whole numerology people going, and I think 90% of the time people use that like as their main argument. Most of the time like it's utter nonsense. It does work for world events, but when it comes to sports most of the time like I think it's nonsense. How do I know? Because I was actually following this until I realized that 90% of the time, the people who were making predictions with gematria and numerology were getting everything massively wrong. The Chiefs were supposed to win the Super Bowl last year. The Ravens and 49ers were supposed to make it 2 years ago. The Yankees were supposed to win it all last year, etc., etc. However, there is one out of every 100 games, I would say, where I'm not going to say like I know what happened, and hey, I love pro sports, which is why like I cover them on here, and I do think there is so much good to them beyond the whole breads and circuses stuff, but there could have been some funny business going on in this game, I don't know. Anyways, Dart threw a crucial pick after having a great start to that game. Bo Nix had multiple fourth quarter touchdowns, and a go-ahead rush with 2 minutes left, while the Giants defense fell apart, and their kicker missed an extra point, and also like a missed field goal I think too. Both seemed to be pretty easy kicks. Giants had everything rolling, and it was looking like that team was on their way to another massive win, but they fell apart. In that same division, the Cowboys dominated the Commanders 44-22, and Dak Prescott may have overtaken Baker in the MVP race, as he threw for another 3 touchdowns and had a pass rating of over 130, while their defense was actually looking better in this game. Of course, Jane Daniels got hurt, but Javonte Williams had a big game, as did the second best duo of wide receivers in the NFL, in George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. The Cowboys are surprising a lot of people. The Chiefs blanked the Raiders 31-0, and Patrick Mahomes is back to looking like Patrick Mahomes. If I were to do my whole top 5 QBs list again, he would definitely be in there right now. The return of Rashee Rice was big, and the Chiefs' offense has been firing on all cylinders recently. The Colts continue to prove that that team is for real and that offense is for real, and they currently have 2 MVP candidates as of right now. Jonathan Taylor is running away with the best running back in the NFL, as he ran for yet another 3 touchdowns to boost his season total to 10, and is also leading in rushing yards as well. While Daniel Jones threw for 288 and 2 passing touchdowns too, as that Colts team is now 6-1, and they did that all against a solid Chargers defense. My favorite team, the Green Bay Packers, beat the Arizona Cardinals 27-23, in a game that was a little bit too close for comfort. A hurt Josh Jacobs ran for 2 touchdowns. Jordan Love played well enough, he made some key throws to Romeo Doubs, but that game was close the whole way. Jacoby Brissett actually runs that offense a lot differently from Kyler Murray in Arizona, because he's a way better pocket passer than Kyler, so he gives his receivers more of a chance to get open. While Kyler sometimes doesn't know how to use his athleticism properly, so he's not as smart about it as Lamar is, for instance, so he ends up running around too much, which often hurts his team. Micah Parsons had his best game as a Packer, as he came up with 3 massive sacks. The Philadelphia Eagles outplayed the Vikings for most of that game, and yet it was still within reach up until the end. Jalen Hurts quieted the rumblings in Philly, as he threw for 326 and 3 passing touchdowns, 2 of those to A.J. Brown and 1 to Devonta Smith. All those were actually great throws. Carson Wentz, yes, it wasn't his best game. He did throw 2 picks, but watching that game and watching him play, he still knows how to play, and he moves the ball and he moves that offense well in my opinion. I actually think he makes that offense run really well, and he makes the team better, but he also took a bunch of hits in that game too. Patriots destroy the Titans 31-13, and Drake May looks like the real deal, as he was 21 of 23 for 222 and 2 touchdowns, and ran for 62 yards too, and some of those throws were actually super impressive. Those were not easy throws, as the Pats improved to 5-2. Lions beat the Bucs in pretty surprising fashion. The high-power Bucs offense struggled, whether with fumbles, drops, sacks, and it was just a sloppy game all around, and the Lions D came up big, so give credit to them as well. Jahmyr Gibbs had a massive game, as he ran for 136 and 2 touchdowns, and Goff had a nice touchdown pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown. 49ers beat the Falcons, and that depleted 49ers defense, shut down Bijan Robinson, and also made Michael Penix struggle greatly. Christian McCaffrey had a monster game with over 200 total yards and 2 touchdowns, as the Niners improved to 5-2 in a tough division. In that division as well, the Seahawks improved to 5-2, with their Monday night win over the Texans. Sam Darnold and JSN connected for 8 catches and 123 yards and a touchdown, while Stroud's struggles continue in Houston. Finally, the Browns rolled over the Dolphins. Gabriel, of course, didn't have to do much, but he also made a ton of mistakes, unlike Tua, who had a rough game, as he threw 3 picks, and I'm not going to say all his picks were his fault, but there's definitely a lot of problems going on in Miami. In that game, also, Quinshon Judkins rushed for 3 touchdowns. Panthers beat the Jets, not much to say there, and also the Bears beat the Saints. Next up, over the weekend, we saw the greatest performance, possibly by an athlete ever, or at the very least by a baseball player in history. Shohei Ohtani did the absolute unthinkable. He went 6 innings, 10 strikeouts as a pitcher, and only gave up 2 hits and no runs, while going 3 for 3 with 3 home runs at the plate. That's insane. I was honestly speechless when I saw this. This has to be one of those Wilt Chamberlain stat lines, and records, if we're putting this in basketball terms, I don't see it ever being broken. I'm not sure if we're ever going to see another performance like that again. Plus, this was in a playoff game to send the team to the World Series. His pitches were nasty, he was throwing absolute gas, and then adding in some sweepers and split action, and to hit 3 home runs at the plate as well. And look, I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment and forget everything that Aaron Judge did this year, as well as of course in the postseason how he was leading the MLB in hits in the postseason prior to his team getting eliminated. So we can't forget about that. But right now we might be watching the best baseball player ever, and possibly greatest athlete ever, like I've been hearing some people say, in Shohei Ohtani. The Dodgers sent the Brewers packing, and proved me right once again, which is that team is by far the most complete team in baseball. From top to bottom, pitching to hitting, you honestly can't name a better roster. And everyone on that team is performing at the right time. Snell, Glasnow, Yamamoto, Ohtani, Betts, Freeman. As I've been saying for a while now, I don't see anyone capable of beating them. And then the other side, in the AL, we saw a shocker as of Monday night, as the Blue Jays are now on their way to face the Dodgers in the World Series. And I think there's a few reasons why this happened. I think the Jays finally started to trust their starters more, and of course their bats came alive. As I said early on in this playoffs, I underestimated how good this Blue Jays team was, and yet they still found themselves in a 2-0 hole against the Mariners on the road. Cal Raleigh delivered big in the series for the Mariners, as he had 4 home runs in the series, so the big dumper definitely delivered, and he had 1 in Game 7. Josh Naylor delivered big, Julio Rodriguez delivered big with another home run in Game 7, and honestly, up until the 7th inning of Game 7, it looked as if the Mariners were on their way, until one swing of the bat by the only position player on the Blue Jays who has any World Series experience, George Springer, the same guy who was snubbed from the All-Star game this year, and his stats ended up being borderline MVP candidate. He blasted a 3-run home run off of Bizzardo, and everyone's going to be criticizing Dan Wilson's decision not to go to Munoz in that situation. Vlad Guerrero Jr. of course had a massive series, and he had 6 home runs in this playoff so far. As the Jays reminded us that their bats in that series against the Yankees wasn't just a fluke, but I liked how Scherzer came up big in the series and got a win. Bassett pitched great in his spots. Gossman had a great series, and Hoffman of course shut the door to send the Jays to their first World Series since 1993. Hats off to the Mariners for an amazing season, but now if I had to predict, I want to say Dodgers in 5. However, every time I underestimate the Blue Jays, they keep proving me wrong. So I'm not sure, but I will say Dodgers in 6 just to be a bit more conservative. Anyways, that's your awesome sports recap for the week. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now back to the end of the video now. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the topics. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know if this video helps you. I will catch you guys next time. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel. I will catch you guys next time. Stay positive, stay hustling, stay grinding. Come back stronger every time. Catch you next time. Peace.